Shall we play a game?
I used to be a pinball freak. That's where you find me every week. But now it's Pac-Man. Yeah, it's the Pac-Man.
At the game arcade,
They say I'm hardcore
I could play all day
till my hands are sore.
and I quit my job
Just to play some more
but I won't give up.
till I break high score.
Pac-Man.
Hello, Carnies.
Hi, guys.
Welcome.
Two. Here we go again.
You're so stupid. Hey, guys, another episode of Sideshow. Anybody who made the mistake of listening in on episode number 6 this past week knows that we are not recording in Joe's little hovel. We are recording in our friend Robert's bigger hovel.
It's a very nice place. And thank you, Robert, for having us over.
Oh, I'm thrilled. Thank you.
As far as hovels go, this is one of the nicer
Welcome
ones.
to my
that-
hovel.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I could have this space right over here. The guests can come in.
I won't bother them. They won't bother me. Your room's over here. I couldn't afford this anyways. Hey, wait, was that a line from the jerk?
It was.
Anyways, Garney, welcome to Sideshow. Today's episode is all about gaming, arcade gaming, and Robert is a special guest who has a number of these arcade games, and him and Joe are going to spend probably the next half hour
2 hours long.
completely geeking out.
This could be a
about it.
two-parter. I think I kind of chided Jacques a little bit earlier because he said, well, maybe we could do like a 1 or 2 part episode, like 2 parts. Like,
It could
what
be
the...
a series.
Yeah, no, right.
Thank you, Robert.
Right. Well, I was like 2 parts. What could possibly take that long? And not looking around and talking with Robert for a little while about video games and arcade gaming in general. Yeah, this could be a 2-part episode. We'll see how it goes.
What is the term? Is it arcading?
No, I made that up just now.
Is
Nobody
there-
used arcading ever.
Copyright.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Call the trademark office.
Yeah.
Is there a gaming term for people who collect arcade games other than bane of their wife's existence? Is there?
That one's probably the most common.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
what exists. Yeah, but no, I mean, a classic gaming, I'd say.
Yeah, like
or,
retro gamers.
Retro gamers, yeah, or just video game collectors.
Because I know what do you call people who collect stamps? Losers.
Good one. So, Robert, maybe you can just introduce the audience to your arcade room and maybe you could just do a quick rundown of the games that you have.
Sure. So the games that I have 9 games. 6 of them are working. 3 of them are what they call projects. The first game I have is a Popeye. I also have a Millipede / Centipede with a chip, Dig Dug, Donkey Kong Jr., Defender, Galaga, and then project games are Burger Time, Return of the Jedi, and Seawolf.
Yeah, and Seawolf is the oldest one that you have.
Seawolf is the oldest game. It's actually the game I paid the least for. Got it for a song. Powers up, but still working on it.
Which song was it, by the way?
Not a good one.
When the levee breaks.
But again, Seawolf is the old original, and actually they brought it back. So there's actually a new updated version of this. If you go to like any of the newer arcades, like a Chuck E. Cheese or any of the trampoline parks, you'll see there's a newer Seawolf with the exact same logo. Where I think Williams licensed it. Williams Gaming is long gone, but where that whoever owns that trademark and license put it on a new game, which is again 3D graphics, kind of a sit-down cocktail version where you can shoot torpedoes at various and get tickets to turn into your favorite worthy prize.
Yeah, the Redemption.
The Redemption
Yeah,
games.
I know. But the Seawolf that you have now, it has a periscope attached to it.
It does have a periscope. It has some classic sounds of the U-boats and of the destroyers going by. This is the original game, I think, from 1978, 79.
And yours is a project version because it does not. It is powers up, but it doesn't work.
It powers up, but there's no display. So I haven't gotten into it yet. And I like to be fairly careful with the games because, again, these are, really antiques. I mean, this game in particular is, going on 40 years old. And so when I originally took the door off the back of it, there's a little bit of wood rot and stuff going on back there. So you've got to be careful. I like to try to preserve them because they are kind of becoming more and more rare.
Yeah, I mean these are like historical artifacts, and they're only going to become more valuable over time. Unlike Beanie Babies.
Yeah, that bubble burst in.
But I have the princess one, the purple one.
Oh, okay, that's the good one.
We all suck a lot of money. When you said millipede with a chip, what does that mean?
Yeah, so the really cool thing about this hobby now, Jacques, is if you get a lot of these games, or they are the original boards, they are the original monitors. They faded over time. A lot of times they'll get a condition called burn-in because it's the same image over and over and over again that you used to get on the old plasma TVs. So a lot of times you can't get rid of that no matter what you do. But a lot of times now you can they call recapping the monitor, putting new capacitors on that really brings the colors and the richness back to the monitors. But also on the boards, they have a lot of different chips now and capacitors which allow you to either save the high scores and maybe add an extra game on. So Centipede and Millipede essentially function the same way with a trackball and a fire button. This little extra chip and board, which pretty much anybody could put on, might cost an extra $10-15 from an online gaming resource. You slap it on, you push two buttons a certain way, and now you're playing the Centipede version of the game versus Millipede. So it's basically an add-on chip.
And does that increase, decrease the value, or is it like not original if you add the chip? Does it?
It kind of depends. So for me, as a gaming enthusiast who likes to play the games, I think it's really neat because you get to add the game. So now I've got, rather than having a Millipede and a Centipede cabinet, I get to experience both. Having said that, you're not changing or altering the original version of the game. For those purists, I can pop that chip off and the board is still the same, everything's still original. And there's really no change to the original Millipede game.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, collecting the original cabinets is fantastic if you have the space, B, the money.
Yeah.
Myself, I do emulators. Sorry, folks, I'm not a purist like Robert here, but
But let me say, there's nothing wrong with emulators, to be honest with you. I think emulators are fantastic. The MAME is what a lot of people have heard about. MAME, and it's brought so many more people into the hobby. And again, it really exposes you to so many games that you otherwise wouldn't have. To the point just made, it can get expensive. These things are 6 feet tall and 300 pounds, and we all only have so much space.
Right.
I'm fortunate that I have an unfinished basement with a lot of space right now, but I'm not sure how long I'll have it. But at the same time, again, I think everyone has their price points. I mean, for me too, I try to focus on games. I'm not going to pay a lot of money for a game. So a lot of times I'll find them from individual collectors or like a bar or business that's going out of business. You can go online and buy these, and there's stores that'll sell them to you, all refurbished, slick looking good. A lot of time refurbished parts, but they're marked up big time, almost what they were originally, $2,000 or $3,000 a piece. And what I'm proud to say is, for most of all my games, I haven't paid more than most expensive one I bought was Popeye, which is my first one.
Right. I was going to ask you what was the first game you bought.
For $600.
Yeah.
And the rest have been all less than that. And then I've kind of made it a hobby to enjoy, buying little bits and pieces and trying to refurbish them and making them nicer in my own way. But yeah, cost is always a concern.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would like to. My dream would be get a MAME cabinet, just like even like a MAME cabinet kit, because I'm not as handy. I'm not a woodworking guy, and I'm not going to take an old cabinet and retrofit it and all that stuff. So that would probably be the peak of my interest in getting an actual arcade experience in my home. But this is just fantastic, and this is just sort of the tip of your iceberg. I mean, I think you're looking to expand this over time.
I'd love to. I've got a little laundry list, and then to be honest, when I made that laundry list, I made a laundry list of about 20 games, and I said, listen, these are the games if I can find them in good shape without having to completely start from scratch. I'd love to acquire them and obtain them for a reasonable price. But that list is even longer in reality. But I've had to be conscious and think, hey, 20 games is probably about it. Maybe not even attainable to get that many.
Right.
Having said that, I think like anybody else in this hobby, every once in a while a game will come up that you hadn't planned on buying, but it was the right price and right time, and hey, why not roll the dice on it? And Seawolf's a prime example of that.
Yeah.
I wasn't really looking for a Seawolf. If you told me my top 20 games, if I only had room for 20 games, would I pick Seawolf? Absolutely not. But for $90, I'll take a flyer on a Seawolf.
$90 delivered.
Delivered.
Yeah.
I'll take a flyer on it, see if I can get it to work. If the worst case scenario I can, I'm out $90. Best case, hey, I've got a really cool game. And then the neat thing is in this hobby, you can usually make your money back. You can usually flip these and find other collectors and sell them, and you might sell one or two and then bring a different one in.
Right. And the worrisome thing about collecting arcade cabinets now is that because of the internet, because of the people who have grown up on these games now, like yourself, have come into money or
middle age.
Exactly right.
I can't afford the sports car.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or the women.
That house on the beach.
Right. But I mean,
or the women.
But the hobby is only going to get more and more expensive, and these cabinets are going to become more and harder to find. So it's almost like there's a ticking clock as far as how long you can go without buying the games and holding out for the games that you really want, because they're only going to go up in price.
That's true, and we're seeing that in arcade games and pinball machines and a lot of the collectibles from the arcade era. I mean, even the older games from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the old pitch and hit games,
the mechanical
games that don't even rely on the
electricity,
or the video boards.
Yeah,
they're even more expensive than they ever were.
Yeah. So from what you have here now, what would you say your favorite go-to game is?
Probably Millipede, and I can't say that I was a diehard Centipede Millipede guy before I bought the machine.
All right.
I've kind of grown to love it, and that it can get very hectic and can get very complex and get very manic. And again, the nice thing about that a game which is by Atari, came out in '82, is you can actually start in a higher level and a higher complexity, so you're not starting at the base 0 all the time.
Yep.
But just because I think it's a game that doesn't translate well to the home systems, because you have to have a trackball to truly play it the way it was meant to be played. And it was one of the first, it was actually the second game I got. I just spent a lot of time with it, and I've grown to really appreciate it and love it. And so if you asked me originally, again, it was kind of a convenience thing. I said, oh, this is a popular game. I think I could always, sell it if I had to. I got a good deal on it. I put a little bit of work into it. Still have a little bit of work to go. But for the most part, this was a game that I thought would be, hey, it'd be fun to own, but I never thought I'd enjoy it as much as I do.
Yeah, I think Millipede is also, it's very evergreen, and it's so random in its play. Like, if you play a game like Galaga, for example, which is Jacques' jam, by the way.
Yes.
That high score is going to look great on a resume. I love using that line because he constantly uses that line to me. But a game like Galaga, eventually, if you become so OCD about it and you can become really good at it, you can master it because it's almost pattern recognition. You know, they all come down the same thing. Whereas Millipede, it's so frantic and manic and almost random.
Yes, a lot of variables.
Yeah,
a lot of different insects coming at you.
Right. It's almost impossible to master that game, and it's almost like a new experience every time you play it.
Right.
And plus, it has a fucking trackball. Man, trackballs are just cool. All right. Hashtag trackball life.
Which is a better trackball, this or Golden Tee?
A Millipede is definitely. I mean, come on. Yeah. I mean, Golden Tee.
Well, the cool thing is, though, now there's a lot of aftermarket parts. So I've kept most of my games original. You can buy, and I toyed with this idea for a little while with the Millipede. I went with the black trackball, which is a middle. You can get trackballs now that change colors,
right? That have LEDs
in them. They can do rainbow. When you have all the lights off at night, it's a very cool effect. So depending upon your preference, you don't have. That's a nice.
Or your drug of choice.
Yeah, you can make it anything you want.
Yeah, I know.
So first of all, Joe, great job mixing in these arcade sounds as we're talking. Joe has a mixing board. He keeps randomly hitting arcade
Actually,
games.
I have like a Michael Winslow ability of making these sounds with my mouth.
Actually, if you are, we don't know if they're coming across on the mic, but Robert has the games on, and it has such ambience.
Yeah, ambience.
Nice. So Popeye was your first game. Why?
Again, you know what? Well, two things. One, timing and opportunity. But for me, I grew up going to the arcades as a kid, like everybody else back in the 80s. And for me, Popeye had a kind of a special place in my heart because at the local Chuck E. Cheese, when I used to visit my grandmother down in Virginia, it was the first game that you saw when you came around the corner. And it wasn't the first game that you always played, but it was always one you had to hit. And obviously knew the Popeye cartoon growing up back in the 80s and 70s. When I went out looking for an arcade game, I said, hey, these things have to be expensive to ship, and they are. But I found this guy on eBay who lived in Tewksbury, Mass., just down the road, and he had a completely restored Popeye, original cabinet, a lot of original parts, but had put new sidearm on it, made it look really nice, and he was selling it for a reasonable price. So I said, hey, here's something I can test out, I can play. I love the game. I had the game when I had a Atari 2600. Let me give it a shot. And I went over there, and I was hooked. And again, talked to him for a while, and he was a really cool guy who had kind of turned his dining room into his mini arcade. So he had a very understanding wife. And
it's funny you threw that caveat in there. It's like,
but no, I picked it up, and it was funny. One of his last words to me when I loaded it on my truck and I took it home was, he's like, "You won't be able to stop with just one." And I kind of was like, yeah, okay, buddy. I just spent $600 for a game that I could go buy or even play free online, right? In today's,
right.
I'm done. And then I found that, again, I was playing it all the time at home. I'd come down to the basement late at night, play it for 15 minutes. 15 minutes became half an hour became an hour. I got better at it, and I said, this is a lot of fun. This is kind of cool. Maybe next thing I know, I was looking for a Millipede. And then it took off from there.
Right. But there is an interesting little backstory about the Popeye game that you could probably tell to the audience.
So Nintendo back in the 80s, probably most known for their Donkey Kong franchise.
Yeah.
And
Never heard of it, but go on.
No, yeah, neat little game. You'd like it.
Okay.
Donkey Kong and everything that spawned off of that. One of the true, probably top games, if not Pac-Man, Donkey Kong from the 80s. But Nintendo originally hadn't planned for it to be that way. They originally were planning to hype up and market Popeye as that game and put all that marketing effort behind Popeye in the U.S., but had a difficult time getting the license from, I'm not sure who held whether it was Warner Brothers or whomever held the license.
King
for Popeye.
Features or something.
King Features.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so Popeye became sort of an after-ran game. Same exact cabinet. If you buy a Nintendo arcade cabinet, Donkey Kong Jr. Popeye, it'll look exactly the same except for the color scheme and the marquee and the board. But other than that, Popeye is kind of what could have been. Who knows how popular Popeye would be today, especially in the world of gaming, if it had all that marketing effort and that big push from Nintendo behind it.
Well, I also have a little. Sorry, Jock. I also have a little bit of nostalgia for the Popeye game because growing up in Somerville, Massachusetts, shout out to Somerville, they had a Boys and Girls Club there that I went to as a young lad after school, and they had an arcade section. And then this is growing up in the 80s. And the cabinet that drew my attention the most because of its cartoonish visuals and the sounds was Popeye. And I would just spend like half an hour, and they were free play, for the Boys and Girls Club. So it's not like I was losing money. I wasn't playing.
Shout out to the Boys and Girls Club.
You're right. Shout out to but yeah, like I think the allure of the Popeye game was it's so faithful to the cartoon itself.
Yes, it was.
It wasn't just like this junky kind of pixelated. Like I think that's olive oil. I can't quite tell. No, I mean these look like you were playing like the cartoon.
Who's the woman with the vulture?
That is the Sea Hag.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for picking that up because I forgot. Sweet Pea is also in there, and then of course Bluto. Yeah. But it's a good game for those of you who haven't played, and they ported it to other gaming consoles like the Nintendo and so forth. But yeah, Jacques, what's your favorite arcade memory? And it better be Galaga.
Well, yeah, I played 2 years of junior hockey out of Buffalo in the summer. It was a summer league, and I had $5 a day. That was spending money. That was it. And across the street from where I was, there was a Buffalo Wings place, and they had a Galaga and a Miss Pac-Man. And the idea wasn't to get a high score. It was how long can I make this $5 last? And I got really, really good at we didn't have cable. So this is 83, 84. And, in Buffalo, there really was nothing to do. Well, there was nothing to do if you had no money. I mean,
right.
There was bowling. Bowling was pretty cheap.
Meth hadn't even come.
Meth hasn't. No, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Right,
right. Wouldn't be surprised if meth did come from Buffalo, and God bless it if it did, because those people need something. Literally, mini golf was big there, and bowling was big, but those cost $5 to play around. So I would just go across the street to Johnny's and could spend a couple hours just making that $5 last. And along the way, got freakishly good at just those two games. So people would see me play those games. Wow, he's really great at games. Play Pac-Man, and I'm out within seconds.
Yeah.
But I hadn't played in years and years and years. Whenever it would go 10 years would go by, you could walk into a restaurant and you would see one of those things, and you would go over and you would become the guy who's like, oh wow, he's really good at this. It's like, this is uncomfortable. I'm going away. And then when I started a company in Santa Monica, I bought a couple of those to hang out, and it was the same thing. And then I would just, hard to believe for those who've listened to more than one episode, I would be a dick. It's kind of my thing. And I would play. And I would do the Princess Bride thing, where I would play left-handed unless the person was worthy of me switching to the right hand. But I would just play and okay, if I can't get to 20,000 to get the new guy with the left hand, then. But those are the two games that I would just play relentlessly. And again, it's not that they were my favorite game because I like the graphics, I like the storyline of Galaga, right. Or I was OCD enough to remember the patterns and study. It's I had nothing else to fucking. So you would you would lift in the morning, have a couple hours off, skate for a couple hours, have a few hours off, and then have like a game at night or something like that. So you were training like 6-8 hours a day, but the rest of the time you were in fucking Cheektowaga, New York, the biggest suburb of Buffalo, with nothing to do but find a way to make $5 last a couple hours.
Cheektowaga sounds like a sequel to Galaga.
The neighboring town was Tonawanda. The town next to that was West Seneca. Little slice of heaven.
Yes.
You know.
So, I mean, you have a great collection starting, but you also have a wish list of games. Maybe you can highlight some of those.
Yeah, sure. So again, these are the games I have today that we talked about. But if I had my my druthers, if you will, and money were no object,
Right.
There's a few I'd love to have. One of which is a Paperboy.
Yes, with the handlebars.
With the handlebars. I was a paper boy. I can relate to all those things in that game, if those of you are familiar with that game. But it has the great handlebar controllers.
Yep.
Another one would be Food Fight with the classic hero, Charlie Chuck, who would run around and hurl food at evil pie chefs.
That's
who
right.
Came to,
yes. Was that sort of like Robotron?
Very similar to like a Berserker or Robotron
Yeah,
type of game,
okay.
but Atari made it.
Was it a dual joystick?
One joystick.
Oh, one joystick.
One joystick had a very smooth kind of trackball underneath it.
Okay.
And that's actually, it's funny with one of those things is the joystick was very known for breaking on that game.
Oh.
And so it's actually hard to find one. It's far hard to find one to replace the joystick.
Yeah, right.
Tron is a game that's out there a lot that I just love.
Yeah.
Again, great graphics, brought out back now by Disney. Great controller, 4 games in one kind of concept. Dragon's Lair, I think one's probably everyone's familiar with.
One of the first like laser disc video based games, which is basically was a QuickTime event game.
Yeah.
Dragon's Lair, the fantasy adventure where you become a valiant knight on a quest to rescue the fair princess from the clutches of an evil dragon. You control the actions of a daring adventurer finding his way through the castle of a dark wizard who has enchanted it with treacherous monsters and obstacles. In the mysterious caverns below the castle, your odyssey continues against the awesome forces that oppose your efforts to reach the dragon's lair. Lead on, adventurer. Your quest awaits.
The animation was done by Don Bluth Studios. Space Ace was another, the sequel to Dragon's Lair, essentially. Or the follow-up. It wasn't the sequel. Yeah. Dragon's Lair, that was the first dollar game.
That was the game in the arcade when it came out. I think it came out around '84, and it got popularized too because it was on the opening credits. I think to Silver Spoons, going back to one of those '80s sitcoms that I think we all used to watch on Sunday nights. But yeah, it was basically like a cartoon. It was a live cartoon that you could play. But unfortunately, it was 4 quarters versus 1, which at the time it's like, wow, I could play Popeye, Zaxxon, Bosconian, and whatever else, or do I play one game of Dragon's Lair? And unless you played it a lot and got really good at it.
That game kicked your ass.
The game kicked your ass. And it was all timing because it was all just up and down. It was the same thing as the modern games. It was one joystick and one fire button, but if you were slightly early or late on when you were going to go directionally, you were cooked.
And I think, if I remember correctly, it didn't have, I think the later iterations of the Dragon's Lair, when they would re-release it, they would actually add the arrow indicators as to what you should do right beforehand.
Yeah.
I don't think they had that in the original.
You know what? There's settings. I'm guessing. I could be wrong. There's the difficulty settings.
Yeah, right.
There actually are on all these games too. That I think the hardest one didn't have that. But to your point, the later ones or the ones that's a different setting would flash, and so you see a flash and you would know to go that way.
Yeah.
Left arrow, right arrow, or even I think probably the easiest one had the actual direction, like, hey, fool, go this way.
But what was funny about Dragon's Lair also, and another big draw of the game, was the gruesome deaths.
Yes.
Dirk Daring was the
Dirk the Daring.
Dirk the Daring was the knight in shining armor that was there to save Princess Daphne.
And actually, I think she was. That actually became a Saturday morning cartoon,
right?
And I think she was made a little
Toned
more
family
friendly, as opposed to wearing the sheer black nylons that she wore in the arcade game.
Yeah, she just got out of a Victoria's Secret catalog in the original version. But like the gruesome deaths would be, if you missed the timing, you would fall down into a vat of boiling lava and then become a skeleton.
Yeah.
That unfortunately didn't translate well to the home consoles in later years. Like the Nintendo Entertainment System version is notoriously bad, almost unplayable. But Dragon's Lair, that would be a get.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I wonder if you could even get a game like that to work now with the original Laserdisc in it, because A, the players are spotty, and B, the laser rot.
The laser rot, the players are hard to find. It's a Pioneer player. They're hard to find. The ones that you do find usually don't work well. Finding a Laserdisc is a whole separate story. A lot of times what you see people do is they'll actually take a laptop.
Right.
And they'll actually load it on there, and then you play off that. So almost like an emulator.
Yeah.
And they'll put that in the cabinet. So
Yeah, like they've made DVD versions of it.
yeah, exactly.
It's essentially, it's a QuickTime game. If you don't know what a QuickTime game is, go look that up. I'm not explaining everything to you guys. So yeah, and I guess what you want to go like next on the list of our things to ask Robert.
Well, one of the things is like, what is the buying process running it through the managerial system?
Oh, the managerial system.
What is the managerial system?
No, is there a whole PO requisition process?
That's a
Does it go
very
through
delicate
human-
topic.
Does it
you
go through
bring.
human
It's a very
resources?
delicate topic.
What's the
you bring.
operating budget for this sort of thing?
You know, the operating budget, is flexible.
Whenever I friggin' feel like it.
It's flexible. No, I've been fortunate. My wife's been supportive of this hobby of mine, and she kind of knows that I won't go overboard. Having said that, if I told her, hey, it's the love of my life game, and I want this game, and she wouldn't object to it. It helps when you're the guy that controls the family budget.
Well, but you're doing it responsibly.
Try to do it
Yeah.
responsibly, but yeah, I mean, it's like any other hobby. It could get out of control if you let it.
I think it's more and less about the money and more about the time spent away from the family.
It is, but it's a labor of love, and it's funny because a lot of times, people that are into this hobby, they want to see these games maintained, they want to see them restored or brought back. They want to know they're not going to be trashed or just left out in the open, and they're getting harder and harder to find. So a lot of times, your true gaming hobbyists, there's sort of a separate market that people will give each other deals, kind of under the radar, or for below market what they put on Craigslist or what they put on eBay.
Yep. What you were talking about made me think about this, but it's almost like something I don't want to bring up is what is the end game? And eventually, like collectors like myself, I collect a lot of console games just to have. A lot of times I don't even play them. But
we know.
Shut up.
We've had 2 game reviews that he's like, yeah, I've never played this one.
Right. But at some point there will be like sort of an end where, okay, what will happen when I get too old to play these games? Where do we go from here? It's almost like you don't want to think about that stuff now because it's fun to have sort of build your collection. But at some point it's just like, oh man, I got to figure out where this is all going to go. If we move, God forbid we have to move or something like that, it's a hassle to kind of maintain these systems and then transport
Yeah, it's
them.
not putting your PS3 back into the box. And
No, the games are big, they're heavy. We had to have, when we moved to my current house, we had professional movers move them. You can move them with a dolly or a hand cart. Having said that, yeah, it's usually at least two person job. And
Yeah.
some of these are bigger and more awkward and heavier than others. They all have different shapes and sizes. But no, it's a great point. And again, there's a place up in New Hampshire near Laconia called the American Classic Arcade Museum. A lot of people would know it as the Fun Spot.
Yep.
And I think that's a great resource. And if you haven't been, I definitely encourage you to go. It wins all kinds of awards for like 50 quirkiest places to visit on your summer vacation in America.
Yeah.
But again, they are dedicated. They actually are like the first arcade-based 501(c). You've heard that with Cars for Kids and everything else on the radio. That they're actually we're trying to restore and maintain an inventory of all these games and keep them working, keep them available to the public. So, a lot of times what you'll see is people that have really obscure games will donate them there. And so certainly that's, again, I don't know if my kids love these games now because they're simple to use and they're, really young. But I'm sure, by the time they get to be my age, these things will be antiques or not cool.
Yeah.
And so what do you do with them, right?
Right. It's nostalgic for you because growing up, this was all part of
There's no personal connection for this generation.
I think the draw to maybe new arcades isn't so much the game itself; it's more the experience and the unique interaction with those games. Like if you go to like a Dave and Buster's, for example, one of the more popular games would be like maybe I don't know, like the Jurassic Park game.
Sure.
Where it's a sit down cabinet where it's almost like a 3D kind of environment.
But it's interesting, too, because the pace of technology, right, and there's the change that we're seeing across our world, right, really affects these games as well. So, again, you go into a Dave & Buster's 10 years ago, right, You won't see any of the games that were there in the Dave & Buster's today.
Yeah.
Because they've all been replaced. I mean, the T2s, the Jurassic Park, some of them, the franchises have held on. But, now it's all about the new interactive experience, whether it's the wind in your hair when you're playing the new Daytona 500, which is linked to 5 other people, and then the seat moves and rocks and shakes. A lot of the games, it's funny, a lot of the games that we call really cool and really neat, 5-10 years ago, like Hydro Thunder, right? Or even the Golden Tees, you can pick them up for almost next to nothing nowadays. Number one, they're big, they're awkward, they're hard, but people want the newest things. They want the latest bells and whistles, just like we all do, right? They want the interactivity, the connectivity to someone else.
Yep. I like the new Pac-Man tournament games that come out there. They're like the big pressure luck board from like they're huge monstrosities.
Big money, no whammies.
Yeah, right. But
Almost every show he says that.
yeah, right, that's what makes it
Every show.
I have to work in a pressure luck reference every now and then, every episode. So yeah, I guess maybe we can.
Well, but when you were saying that, what do you do with these? Your kids aren't into it. What is funny is like my little ones. There's more. Like there's the Chunky Cheeses, of course, but there's more arcades popping up. There's a place in Methuen called JG's. This is an ice cream place that has the mini golf, that has the batting cage, that has the go-karts, but there's a full-on arcade. And what surprises me is how often they want to go and play these games. And it's and I don't know, a part of it might be because of Netflix, they've stumbled upon the old 80s Pac-Man cartoon, the old Mario cartoon. So they know all the new games and stuff as that, but they also know these games. And I think it's kind of...
Well, it's just parents that... people who are parents now that grew up with those games, like Robert and myself, that are indoctrinating.
No, it's like I didn't sit down and watch it. Like, to be honest, those Pac-Man cartoons, they're fucking awful.
Oh, yeah, they're terrible. Oh, God, the garbage we were fed as kids.
Awful. But they found...
Not as good as Mr. T, but no.
Oh, right.
Pitiful.
Oh, you son of...
But seriously, they found some of these old Saturday morning cartoons. It's great. It's great. They found the Mario Brothers with Lou Albano. Oh. And one of the greatest episodes is when Cyndi Lauper comes over to talk to Mario because she can't find her friend Lou Albano.
Right.
So
Right.
Mario has to help find...
and then
Spoiler.
Yeah, then he has to leave the room. I'll be right back. That's Mario leaving. And then coming in, hi, I'm Lou Albano.
But so they...
What?
So then they've gone and they've like played the old retro games because these new arcades don't just have, like at JG's, they don't have the room for the Dave & Buster's. Well, at the same time, they're not catering to the group of 5 millennials who want to do this game together. So it's funny how these retro games have stuck around a bit. And I also, and I'm not kidding, and this was lower on the list, another thing that I think has some kids like my kids' age into the older games, Wreck-It Ralph.
Yep.
Yeah.
They really liked the old characters from Wreck-It Ralph, and they wanted to see Q*bert. They want, like when they saw all the cameos from all the people that we loved and stuff like that, they wanted to go back and play it. Or they'll see one of these at a Chuck E. Cheese or at one of these places, one of these games that they might not have been on their radar. That's from that and go on over.
Yeah, I mean, when you were talking, I was just remembering like how you brought up the old Pac-Man cartoon, and like think about the fervor. I mean, I was kind of young when the arcade frenzy kind of hit its peak in like 82, 83, 84. But like there was so many, everybody wanted to jump on like that arcade craze. Like they had the Saturday morning cartoons. Robert, do you remember any?
There was a song by Pac-Man Fever.
Yeah,
right?
Pac-Man Fever.
Yeah.
I mean, did you watch any of those cartoons?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were cartoons on Saturday mornings. I think Q*bert had one that somehow they incorporated Frogger.
I think there was like a Saturday morning arcade.
Yes.
And it was like I remember because I did some research. And it was like Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, and Q*bert. Like they all have like their own segments of the same cartoon
half-an-hour show.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, Saturday, Super K, gather round. We'll get your video friends together. Yes, Saturday, Super K, it's time for fun, and no one else can do it better. And it feels so right, because it's Super K time. Let's have some Super K fun. Yes, it's Super K time. Let's have some
Hey kids, part 1 of this Carnival Personnel Sideshow is over. But don't worry, the gang will be back next week with more arcade action and fun. Be sure to like and share Carnival Personnel on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Carnival Podcast. Now stay tuned for Pac-Man, followed by Captain N, the Game Master, on most of these stations.
Let's have some Supercade
It's Saturday Supercade.